Welcome back to Galaxy Recaps. Today we'll be diving into an action thriller franchise titled Has Fallen. This includes the films Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, and finally Angel Has Fallen. Enjoy the recap. The movie begins with a lighthearted practice fight between Secret Service agent Mike Banning and President Benjamin Asher. It's clear these two share more than just a professional relationship. They have a genuine friendship. The president's family, including his wife Margaret and their son Connor, is at Camp David, preparing for a charity event. Banning isn't just the president's bodyguard. He's close to the entire family. This becomes evident when he helps Margaret pick out a pair of earrings for the evening and offers Connor some advice on what it takes to be a good agent. As it's time to head to the fundraiser, the weather takes a dramatic turn with heavy snowfall setting an ominous scene. The president and Margaret are in the lead limousine while Connor rides with Mike in a following SUV. Disaster strikes when a large branch crashes into the lead vehicle, triggering a series of accidents. One of the Secret Service SUVs plunges off the bridge into the freezing water below. Even more terrifying, the president's limousine is left teetering dangerously on the edge of the bridge. Without hesitation, Mike and other agents leap into action. They try to stabilize the limo by weighing down its end on the bridge and make desperate attempts to rescue both the president and Margaret. Mike manages to free the president, but Margaret's door is jammed. The limo continues to shift, and despite their efforts, it plummets off the bridge into the icy waters below. Taking Margaret with it, Connor comes running, screaming in agony as he realizes his mother has just died. 18 months later, Mike is weighed down by the burden of the past. He's easily distracted, and even when his wife Leah tries to talk to him, suggesting they spend more quality time together, he struggles to engage. Feeling guilty, he proposes a movie night after work, but his new role at the U.S. Treasury is a stark contrast to his previous life. The memories of that fateful night at Camp David haunt him. Secret Service Director Lynn Jacobs knows the guilt he carries and consoles him, emphasizing that he made the best decision he could in that moment. Even President Asher stands by him, but seeing Mike is a painful reminder of the tragedy. Meanwhile, President Asher tries to move forward with his son Connor. They discuss their upcoming trip to Camp David, though Connor would much rather go to the beach. Trying to lighten the mood, Asher suggests getting some ice cream, but duty calls. Asher is summoned to an important meeting to discuss a pivotal gathering with South Korean Prime Minister Lee about rising threats from North Korea. The meeting also involves key figures like Secretary of Defense Ruth McMillan, Speaker of the House Alan Trumbull, and Vice President Charles Rodriguez. Prime Minister Lee arrives at the White House with his Chief Security Officer Kong Yun-suk for the high-stakes discussion. As tensions rise over North Korea, an even more immediate and deadly threat emerges. A massive AC-130 gunship is spotted over Northern Virginia, triggering alarm. Two American fighter jets approach with clear instructions for the aircraft to land or face retaliation. However, instead of complying, the gunship retaliates with devastating firepower, unleashing machine guns and taking down both jets in a shocking display of aggression. The severity of the attack is quickly relayed to President Asher. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he cuts his meeting short and abandons standard protocol to prioritize the safety of his South Korean guests. He orders them to be escorted to the PEOC, Presidential Emergency Operations Center, while the military scrambles into action. Fighter jets are dispatched, soldiers rush to defensive positions, and SAM turrets are ready to intercept the airborne threat. Meanwhile, Mike Banning, stationed at his desk, becomes aware of the chaos erupting outside. The gunship rains destruction onto the streets below, sending civilians into a desperate panic. Instinctively, Mike springs into action, weaving through the carnage to guide people to safety. The military's anti-aircraft turrets fire missiles at the gunship, but the aircraft's countermeasures deflect the attacks. The gunship turns its sights on the White House, unleashing a torrent of firepower that annihilates the rooftop guards. The situation grows increasingly dire until a U.S. fighter jet intervenes. In a bold maneuver, the jet fires a missile that hits its target, sending the gunship plummeting. The flaming wreckage collides with the Washington Monument, causing the iconic structure to crumble. The top of the monument crashes to the ground, tragically crushing several tourists below. Inside the PEOC, President Asher's thoughts remain on his son, Connor. Amidst the turmoil, he issues urgent instructions to ensure Connor's safety. Outside, Mike surveys the devastation with grim determination, but the brief calm is shattered by a new wave of explosions. Perimeter breaches ignite chaos as bombers target the White House fences. Mike quickly takes down one attacker but is unable to stop another from completing their mission. The situation escalates further when Korean insurgents storm the grounds. Smoke grenades obscure their assault as RPGs rip through the gates, leaving destruction in their wake. A fierce gunfight erupts between the attackers and the Secret Service, with heavy casualties on both sides. Mike throws himself into the fray, fighting valiantly to repel the insurgents. Amid the escalating violence, two large trucks approach the White House gates, signaling even greater danger. Inside the Pentagon's crisis room, Director Lynn Jacobs convenes a high-stakes meeting with Ray Monroe, General Clegg, and other top officials. The gravity of the unfolding assault demands swift decisions as the nation teeters on the brink of a full-scale catastrophe. At the Pentagon, officials are briefed on the grim reality unfolding at the White House. Meanwhile, on the battleground, the Secret Service faces overwhelming odds. Outnumbered and outgunned, many officers fall in the relentless assault. Mike Banning's sharpshooting skills prove invaluable as he fights to hold the line while military reinforcements race toward the chaos. Inside the supposed safety of the PEOC, a shocking betrayal unfolds. Gunfire erupts as Kang Yun-suk and his team, aided by a treacherous ally, former Secret Service agent Dave Forbes, slaughter the security detail inside the bunker. President Asher and his top officials are taken hostage, trapped in what was meant to be their most secure refuge. Outside, the assault intensifies. The first of two ominous trucks opens its doors, revealing a massive machine gun that cuts down soldiers with brutal efficiency. Moments later, an RPG blast demolishes the White House's main entrance. Mike watches in horror as his comrades fall, but he quickly retreats into the White House, seeking cover amidst the chaos. The second truck delivers crates brimming with weapons, equipping the terrorists to fortify their position. With their technical expert Lim at the helm, they jam all external communications and controls for the White House, isolating it entirely. Inside, the defenders refuse to back down. Roma and his team launch a desperate counterattack, engaging the terrorists in fierce gunfights throughout the halls. However, as the enemy overtakes the control room, Roma radios a chilling message: Olympus has fallen. Moments later, he is killed, leaving the White House firmly in enemy hands. As reinforcements encircle the besieged White House, strategizing their next move, a shocking development occurs. Kang establishes a video link to the Pentagon where horrified officials watch as Prime Minister Lee is executed on live feed. Kang's message is brutally clear: surrender or more blood will be spilled. The call ends, but his ruthless resolve is soon demonstrated when President Asher refuses to comply with his demands. Forbes coldly executes another hostage to underscore Kang's deadly seriousness. Navigating the blood-soaked corridors, Mike discovers Roma gravely injured on the ground. Fueled by determination, Mike presses on, stealthily reaching the control room. There, he neutralizes a guard and uncovers a chilling clue: a photograph of Connor in the terrorist's pocket. Realizing the danger Connor faces, Mike uses the control room's systems to lock the terrorists out completely. Despite this small victory, the situation remains dire. Meanwhile, Kang's cold and calculating demeanor dominates the hostage situation. He demands access to classified files and directly confronts President Asher, recounting America's perceived wrongdoings in the Korean Civil War. His words are filled with venom, painting a picture of revenge against a nation he believes has meddled in his homeland's affairs for far too long. Speaking in Korean, Kang orders his men to find Connor, leaving President Asher helpless to intervene. The situation escalates rapidly, and at the Pentagon, Speaker Alan Trumbull steps up as acting U.S. President to manage the unprecedented crisis. Meanwhile, inside the White House, Mike Banning reaches the Oval Office and establishes communication with Jacobs at the Pentagon. Skepticism arises among some officials, but Jacobs strongly vouches for Mike's integrity. Their tense exchange is interrupted when Mike faces a formidable intruder, one of the most skilled adversaries he's encountered. After an intense fight, Mike triumphs, using a Lincoln statue to overcome his opponent. Kang then contacts the Pentagon with chilling demands: withdraw the 7th Fleet and 28,500 American troops from the Korean demilitarized zone, or President Asher will be executed. The officials are torn, faced with an agonizing decision. Trumbull proposes reaching out to North Korea, Russia, China, Britain, and France for potential solutions to the crisis. Meanwhile, in the bunker, Kang intensifies the pressure, holding a knife to Admiral Honig's throat and forcing him to reveal the Cerberus code. Despite President Asher's protests, Honig relents and Kang activates the code. At the Pentagon, alarms blare as NORAD reports the Cerberus code's activation. a system capable of disabling the nation's nuclear defenses. Mike sends the Pentagon an image of a terrorist tattoo, seeking intel. Trumbull updates him on the Cerberus system and deduces Kang's interest in Connor as a way to control President Asher. Trumbull assigns Mike a critical mission: find and protect Connor at all costs. Kang, observing Mike's actions through surveillance, orders his men to eliminate him. The terrorist begins searching the White House living quarters to flush him out. Meanwhile, Mike discovers Connor hiding within the hidden walls of Lincoln's bedroom. With the boy's safety as his top priority, Mike reassures Connor that his father will be fine. As terrorists fire at the hidden walls, Mike guides Connor through a ventilation shaft and informs the Pentagon of his plan. The Army coordinates a rescue team to meet them outside. As a terrorist discovers the escape route, Mike takes him out and clears the way for two soldiers to stealthily retrieve Connor. With sniper support, they successfully extract the boy, earning commendation from Trumbull. To gather more intel, Mike interrogates two captured terrorists. When they mock him, Mike's forceful tactics quickly get results. He informs Jacobs of Kang's true identity: Kang Yunzuk, leader of the paramilitary group KUF and the most wanted terrorist on record. They learn that Kang's motives are deeply personal. His mother was killed by an American landmine, fueling his vendetta. Inside the White House, ominous explosives line the walls, their ultimate purpose still a mystery. Kang contacts Mike via intercom, initiating a tense verbal confrontation. The stakes continue to rise as both men prepare for their next moves in the deadly game unfolding within the nation's most iconic building. Mike confidently informs Kang that Connor has been safely extracted and boldly vows to take him down. Kang, unfazed, tries to unsettle Mike by referencing his wife, attempting to get under his skin. Asher listens to the exchange, the weight of the situation etched on his face. Determined to push forward with his plan, Kang shifts his focus to Secretary McMillan, demanding the final Cerberus code. Despite enduring immense pressure and Kang's ruthless methods, McMillan remains defiant. However, with her life in jeopardy, a desperate President Asher commands her to reveal the code. She reluctantly complies, and with the second Cerberus code activated, alarms echo through the Pentagon, heightening the tension. Meanwhile, Mike comes face to face with Forbes. Initially, Forbes feigns fear, but Mike's suspicions are piqued when Forbes mentions Kang by name, a detail he shouldn't know. Realizing Forbes' betrayal, the confrontation escalates into a brutal fight. Knives flash and punches are exchanged in a fierce battle of skill and strength. Despite Forbes' expertise, Mike overpowers him, mortally wounding the traitor. Cornered, Forbes confesses to losing his sense of direction and purpose, leading him down this treacherous path. Mike seizes the moment, coercing Forbes into deceiving Kang by falsely claiming Mike is dead. After the ruse is complete, Mike delivers a final, decisive blow, ending Forbes' betrayal once and for all. At the Pentagon, Trumbull informs Mike that time is running out and they're deploying Navy SEAL teams to the White House. As multiple units approach Washington, Kang's hacker quickly detects their arrival. Mike discovers empty weapon crates and communicates with General Clegg, revealing that the terrorists possess Hydra 6 next-generation weaponry. Despite the threat, Clegg orders the SEALs to proceed. Mike takes out 3 enemies stationed at the weapon controls but becomes pinned down before he can disable the Hydra 6. The weapon activates, wreaking havoc by shooting down a helicopter and taking out multiple SEAL teams. As chaos unfolds, Mike eliminates the remaining operator and races to the rooftop with an RPG. With precise timing, he destroys the Hydra 6 just as it targets another chopper. The debris from the Hydra 6 crashes into the White House, causing a massive explosion and further devastating the already besieged building. Kang, unrelenting, contacts the Pentagon to deliver his next blow. He executes Vice President Rodriguez in a cold display of power and demands the recall of the 7th Fleet, as well as a helicopter for his escape at dawn. Trumbull, desperate to avoid further bloodshed, reconnects with Mike and informs him of the plan to comply with Kang's demands. Mike warns that it's a mistake, but Trumbull gives him a strict half-hour to find a resolution before the order is enacted. With the clock ticking, Mike takes a brief moment to call his wife, drawing strength and motivation from her encouraging words. Fueled by this, he makes a bold move, contacting Kang directly. Over the intercom, Mike taunts Kang, warning him to save the last bullet for himself, or he'll live to regret it. His voice brimming with resolve, Mike declares there will be no more negotiations, only death. Kang drags McMillan out of the bunker, claiming she's free to go. As news media broadcasts the unfolding events, footage captures McMillan cautiously emerging into plain view, her back turned to the terrorists. Kang raises his weapon, ready to execute her, but Mike intervenes with a well-timed assault, drawing Kang's attention and allowing McMillan to escape. She is quickly rescued by troops as Mike engages the remaining enemies, eliminating them one by one. Back at the Pentagon, Trumbull, under mounting pressure, orders the withdrawal of troops from Korea and the 7th Fleet. The announcement plays across global media, and Kong smiles, seemingly triumphant. However, his plan takes an unexpected turn. He conceals the hostages by placing bags over their heads and ties himself and his team together with chains to blend in. Dressed as evacuees, they emerge from the bunker. As a helicopter lands to extract them, troops hesitate to fire, fearing harm to the president. As the helicopter lifts off, it explodes midair, crashing in a fiery wreck. The Pentagon is thrown into chaos, believing President Asher and the hostages are dead. The devastating news reaches Mike, but his instincts tell him otherwise. He knows Kong wouldn't meet his end so easily. His suspicions prove correct. The explosion was a diversion. Kong and his remaining men are still in the bunker with Asher, finalizing their hack into the Cerberus system. Once the system comes online, Kang's horrifying plan becomes clear. He intends to detonate America's entire nuclear arsenal, reducing the nation to ash. The Pentagon receives word of the imminent threat, and a chilling 5-minute countdown begins. Kong blasts a hole into the White House's underground tunnels, preparing to escape, but Mike is waiting for him. As Kong and his men emerge, Mike opens fire, taking out 3 terrorists in quick succession. Asher joins the fray, attempting to stop Kong but is wounded in the struggle. The conflict escalates into a brutal showdown between Mike and Kong. Armed with 2 knives, Kong proves to be a formidable opponent, tossing Mike around and taunting him as a failure. The fight is vicious, but Mike refuses to back down. Summoning all his strength, he lands a series of devastating blows, finally grabbing a knife from the ground and delivering the fatal strike to Kong. With Kong defeated, Mike rushes into the bunker to deactivate the Cerberus system. He contacts the Pentagon, urgently informing them that Asher is alive but critically injured. With mere seconds left on the countdown, Jacobs, Trumbull, and Clegg relay the deactivation code. Mike inputs the code just in time, halting the detonation and saving the United States from catastrophe. Relief washes over everyone as the Cerberus threat is neutralized. Emerging from the bunker, Mike carries President Asher to safety. The nation watches as Asher is reunited with Connor, while Mike shares an emotional embrace with Leah. Later, Asher addresses the country, honoring those lost in the attack and vowing that their courage and unity will rise above fear. As he concludes his speech, Asher steps off the stage and shakes Mike's hand, expressing his gratitude. For Mike, this moment is more than recognition, it's redemption. Standing tall, he reflects on his journey, knowing he has finally made peace with his past and reclaimed his purpose. The next film opens in the vibrant heart of Punjab, Pakistan, amidst a lively wedding celebration. We are quickly introduced to Cameron, who visits his father's house for an urgent discussion. His father, Amir Barkawi, is no ordinary man. He's a powerful figure with a vast criminal network that spans the globe. As the plot unfolds, the G7 intelligence community identifies Barkawi as a notorious Pakistani arms dealer and terrorist. In response, they swiftly authorize a U.S. Air Force drone strike. Tragically, the strike occurs during Barkawi's daughter's wedding, leading to the devastating loss of many innocent lives. The story then jumps forward 2 years. We find Mike jogging alongside the President of the United States, Benjamin Asher, discussing political matters. After their conversation, Mike returns home, where his wife eagerly awaits the birth of their child. As a dedicated Secret Service agent, Mike struggles with the idea of leaving his job to focus on his growing family. He even begins drafting his resignation email. However, before he can finish, the scene shifts to President Asher, who receives a distressing phone call. The shocking news is that James Wilson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has unexpectedly passed away due to complications from surgery, leaving the president deeply shaken. The setting then transitions to London, where top-tier security agencies convene to ensure the safety of the upcoming gathering of global leaders for the late Prime Minister's funeral. The story briefly returns to New York City, where Mike returns to his office and meets with Lynn. Together, they warn the president about the potential dangers of attending the funeral in London. Despite the risks, President Asher remains resolute, emphasizing the importance of his presence at the ceremony. As Mike departs, he crosses paths with Alan Trumbull, the Vice President of the United States. Mike then heads home, reassuring his wife that after this mission he will finally be done. Soon after, he and President Asher depart for London. On the way, Lynn entrusts Mike with the critical responsibility of leading President Asher's international security detail, emphasizing the importance of ensuring everything goes smoothly. Meanwhile, in London, the chief of security rallies his team, updating them on the latest developments and reminding them of the gravity of their duty to protect some of the world's most influential leaders. The entourage touches down at Stansted Airport aboard Air Force One, arriving earlier than planned, catching John, the head of security, off guard. Mike quickly reassures him, pointing out that the fewer people aware of the president's movements, the safer he is. London has become a fortress, with snipers, helicopters, and police officers stationed everywhere, as leaders from various nations converge. Upon arrival, President Asher is warmly greeted by dignitaries. However, in a chilling twist, a man disguised as a police officer discreetly attaches a bomb to the Canadian Prime Minister's vehicle. Moments later, the car explodes, causing catastrophic devastation. Simultaneously, individuals believed to be the King's Guard open fire, killing the German Chancellor and innocent civilians. It's soon revealed that terrorists have infiltrated the ranks, posing as members of the Metropolitan Police. As President Asher approaches the cathedral, a massive group of mercenaries emerges from the shadows, throwing the scene into chaos. Explosions from detonated cars reverberate through the streets, and the cathedral's entrance is swiftly barricaded, leaving the president stranded outside. Mike springs into action, taking down several attackers before finding cover behind an SUV, from where he continues to fend off more adversaries. The situation intensifies as a war machine joins the fray, but Mike's quick thinking neutralizes it. Suddenly, two ambulances speed onto a nearby bridge, and in an instant both explode. The force of the blasts is too much for the bridge's structure, causing it to fracture and begin collapsing. Amidst the chaos, the Japanese official tragically loses his life. Elsewhere, the Italian Prime Minister, gripped by fear, takes refuge inside a chapel when a deafening explosion claims his life. The terror doesn't stop there. The French president's boat is the next target, erupting into flames as it's blown apart on the water. Amidst the pandemonium, a car is quickly dispatched for Ben and Mike. Without hesitation, the duo jumps in and speeds away, trying to escape the unfolding chaos. However, they are soon met with a hail of bullets. Their driver skillfully maneuvers, taking out an enemy vehicle, but they are quickly pursued by a swarm of motorbikes. In a shocking turn, one biker crashes, sending himself through the bulletproof glass, allowing the attackers to shoot through and injure the driver. With no other option, Mike takes the wheel, skillfully evading and neutralizing several pursuers. More bikers appear, but Mike's expert driving keeps them at bay, allowing them to press on. Eventually, after taking out their enemies, they reach a waiting helicopter, board, and lift off to safety. The scene transitions to a somber news broadcast where reporters announce the death toll from the London attacks. 5 world leaders, including presidents and prime ministers, have tragically lost their lives. The narrative then shifts to Amir, the mastermind behind these heinous acts. Alive and well, he is in contact with his son, who confidently assures his father that everything is proceeding according to plan. Following this, they plunge the entire city into darkness by cutting off its power. In response, the Vice President of the United States mobilizes the nearest units, though they are still 2 hours away. The terrorists, relentless in their pursuit, target the president's helicopter as it soars through the skies. One of the accompanying choppers is obliterated under heavy fire. The president's helicopter deploys flares to evade incoming missiles, but as the threat intensifies, they exhaust their countermeasures. In a heroic act, a second chopper sacrifices itself, drawing a missile away to save the president, yet fate deals another blow as a Stinger missile finds its mark, sending the president's helicopter crashing into a park. The scene is one of utter devastation, as officials from the United States watch in horror. Miraculously, both Mike and President Asher emerge from the wreckage, battered but alive. Sadly, the same cannot be said for Lynn. With her final breaths, she urges Mike to persevere and to protect the president at all costs. Emerging from the wreckage, Mike and President Asher desperately try to establish communication with their security team, but their efforts are in vain. Sensing imminent danger, they quickly move into the dense forest to evade the approaching adversaries. Back at the command center, Vice President Allen receives an unexpected call. It's Barkawi, very much alive and orchestrating the chaos. With a tone of cold determination, Barkawi reveals the driving force behind his actions: revenge for the drone strike that tragically killed his beloved daughter. Though he offers a deal, "Hand over President Asher and he will halt the ongoing operation." Allen firmly rejects the offer, making it clear that they will not negotiate under any circumstances. On the move, Mike incapacitates a police officer, leaving Asher taken aback and questioning Mike's actions. However, upon closer inspection of the officer's weaponry, it becomes clear that he is no officer at all. Mike then informs Asher of an MI6 safe house nearby where they can seek refuge, and the duo quickly heads to a subway station. But they are not alone for long. Thinking on his feet, Mike deploys a smoke bomb, causing confusion among the attackers. He then tosses a grenade, taking out the 3 men incapacitated on the ground. Suddenly, a radio from one of the fallen enemies crackles to life. Mike picks it up and finds himself speaking to Cameron. In a bold move, Mike forces Cameron to listen over the radio as he eliminates Cameron's brother, sending a clear message of his unwavering determination to protect the president. Meanwhile, back at the command center, Allen accesses a satellite feed that shows Mike holding his gun in a specific manner. Trumbull immediately recognizes this as a coded signal meant for an MI6 agent. He quickly searches for nearby MI6 safe houses, hoping to pinpoint their location. Amidst the chaos, Asher, fully aware of the gravity of their situation, makes a solemn request to Mike. If capture seems imminent, he would rather Mike end his life than allow the terrorists to execute him live for the world to see. Shortly after, British officials establish communication with Trumbull, and together, they devise a strategy. They decide to call off all first responders, ensuring that anyone still active on the streets can be identified as the enemy, allowing the military to neutralize them without hesitation. Upon reaching the MI6 safe house, Mike and President Asher are met at the entrance by Agent Jacqueline Marshall. She quickly ushers them inside, ensuring their safety. Once settled, Marshall plays a coded voice message for them. It's from Allen, sharing specific details known only to the 3 of them, confirming his identity beyond doubt. Allen's message also informs them that an armored escort is en route to their location, tasked with safely extracting the president. Marshall then reveals the identity of the mastermind behind the attacks. When President Asher learns it's the man whose family he inadvertently caused the death of, he shows a mix of recognition and regret, indicating he's not entirely surprised by the revelation. A while later, an alert signals the arrival of their team outside. Mike checks the security cameras and immediately senses something is amiss. Zooming in for a closer look, he realizes the team outside isn't theirs. Swiftly, he heads to the armory, gearing up for the imminent confrontation. He instructs Asher and Marshall to take cover. Wasting no time, Mike engages the intruders. He quickly neutralizes one mercenary but faces a tougher challenge with the second, drawing attention from another adversary below. In a slick maneuver, Mike takes down several more attackers, sliding into action as if he's playing a video game. Just as he's about to be ambushed, he manages to overpower his opponent. The duo then dashes to a car in the underground garage, ready to make their escape. Meanwhile, Agent Marshall begins an investigation to uncover the mole who has been feeding information to their adversaries. At this critical juncture, the United States officials prove their worth. They've managed to pinpoint Barkawi's hideout, a seemingly vacant house that consumes an unusually high amount of electricity and is linked to one of his past businesses. Meanwhile, Mike and President Asher navigate the chaotic streets of London, spotting adversaries up ahead. Asher floors the accelerator, but bullets rain down and nearby cars erupt in flames. They push forward, but suddenly, a truck barrels in from the side, slamming into their vehicle and causing it to flip. Assailants rush in, capturing President Asher, but Mike proves too difficult to subdue. Just in the nick of time, Trumbull's hit squad descends on the scene. Mike quickly briefs them on the president's abduction, rallying them to launch a counteroffensive. Back at London's security headquarters, Agent Marshall manages to restore their surveillance system using a unique code, leaving everyone in the room both baffled and impressed by the unexpected move. In a desolate warehouse, President Asher finds himself bound, with Cameron menacingly declaring that the entire world will witness his demise. Unbeknownst to Cameron, Mike and his team are already positioned outside the building. Mike's walkie-talkie rings. It's the chief inspector urging caution as there are around 100 armed men inside. But Mike couldn't care less and the battle begins. With precision and determination, Mike and his team systematically neutralize their adversaries. The intensity escalates when an RPG is fired in their direction, but this doesn't deter them. Suddenly, a sentry turret emerges, But Mike, always one step ahead, uses a grenade to eliminate that threat. He and his team push forward, killing enemies with precision, and even using an RPG to take out the gunners and the building's generator. More rockets are fired, giving Mike the time he needs to infiltrate the building. Donning night vision goggles, he places a C4 charge next to the gas lines and then swiftly and quietly takes out multiple assailants. Mike then pretends to be one of the enemies until the generator is turned back on, but it hardly matters. He effortlessly takes out his attackers. Racing through the building, he manages to grab a quad kill but gets shot in the process. Using grenades and anything else at his disposal, he takes down his adversaries one by one. At this moment, Cameron turns on the live broadcast, showing the world President Asher's brutal treatment. Asher, beaten and bloodied, begins to recite his inaugural address while Cameron menacingly grabs a sword. Just as he's about to strike, Mike bursts in, guns blazing, killing every man in the room. However, as he faces Cameron head-on, Mike runs out of bullets. A fierce duel ensues. Mike starts off strong, but Cameron manages to stab him in the stomach. Despite the injury, Mike fights on, beating Cameron to a pulp until Cameron's brother throws a grenade. Providing an opportunity for Cameron to escape, the duo then arms themselves and tries to flee, but they are met with a hail of bullets from enemies on both sides. Stranded and out of options, Mike orders his team outside to detonate the C4. The explosion sends fire ripping through the entire building as Mike and Asher leap into an elevator shaft. The fire kills Cameron and sets the building ablaze. U.S. troops quickly invade and search the building, eventually discovering the elevator shaft where they find both Mike and the president, battered and bruised but alive. They emerge from the wreckage, and President Asher salutes Mike for his heroism. Mike hands over a device he found that could lead to the location of Amir Barkawi. The narrative then pivots to Agent Marshall, who confronts MI5 intelligence chief John, having discovered he was Barkawi's inside man. His fingerprints, found within the security system, were the giveaway. John tries to justify his betrayal, arguing that he wanted to expose the nation's vulnerability to violence due to its current military budget, but Marshall is unmoved and eliminates him. Meanwhile, Barkawi's phone rings. It's Alan. With a tone of finality, Alan informs him that his sinister plan has crumbled. Barkawi defiantly retorts that it's just the beginning. Alan's response is chilling. "Look outside," before Barkawi can react. A drone strike obliterates his base, wiping out him and the remnants of his organization. Fast forward 2 weeks. London, resilient as ever, is on the mend. Mike, seeking some respite, returns to his hometown to cherish moments with Leah and their newborn daughter Lynn, named in honor of his fallen friend. As Mike contemplates his future and wrestles with the idea of leaving his job, he catches a glimpse of Alan on TV. With renewed determination, Mike deletes his resignation letter. The next movie kicks off with Mike Banning, a seasoned Secret Service operative, emerging from a hole in the wall amidst a battlefield filled with fellow operatives. However, this isn't an actual battle, it's a simulated combat scenario. As Mike maneuvers through the simulated battlefield, he fends off numerous agents trying to stop him, each communicating via walkie-talkies to track his movements. Despite his best efforts, one agent finally manages to shoot him, ending the drill and revealing it as a training session. Afterward, Mike talks with Wade Jennings, an old friend and former Secret Service agent who now runs Salient Global, a private military contractor. During their conversation, an irritated contractor named Bruno confronts Mike, angry that Mike knocked him down the stairs during the exercise. Mike casually brushes it off, stating, "If you don't train like it's real, you're dead." As Mike leaves, he discreetly takes medication to manage his pain, the result of a concussion from a previous accident. At a doctor's appointment, Mike is told his health is deteriorating. He's suffering from insomnia, chronic pain, and compressed vertebrae. The doctor warns him that continuing in such a physically demanding job could soon become impossible. Returning home, Mike's wife, Leah, expresses concern for his health. She mentions his potential promotion to director of the Secret Service, even joking that she'll talk to President Alan Trumbull if needed. The scene then shifts to the White House, where Mike meets with David Gentry, the current Secret Service director, who assures Mike that he's next in line for the position. Meanwhile, President Trumbull faces a tough press interview, dealing with questions about U.S. military strategy. He suggests that America's approach to warfare might be evolving, hinting at potential changes ahead. After addressing concerns about a leak from Congress, President Trumbull makes it clear that private contractors like Salient Global are not the same as government soldiers. He also sternly warns against further leaks to the press. Later, Mike, Leah, and Wade share dinner, reminiscing about their past military experiences. During a candid moment outside, Wade jokes with Mike, asking if he ever thought they'd make it past 30. Mike, suffering from a sudden wave of pain, admits he wouldn't accept the Secret Service director role, even if it were offered, as he feels physically incapable of fulfilling the responsibilities. He tells Wade he'll recommend his company to his superiors instead. The next morning, Leah voices her concerns about Mike's insomnia as they watch a news report about Russian troop movements. Mike reassures her before heading to work, sharing a heartfelt goodbye with their daughter. That day, Mike joins President Trumbull on a fishing trip, where the president vents his frustrations about trust issues within Congress. The president also asks Mike why he seems reluctant to accept the director position. Mike, overwhelmed by pain, remains silent. In a lighter moment, President Trumbull jokes with him, telling Mike to scurry off and stop scaring away the fish. As Mike heads back toward the security detail, he discreetly takes more medication, but the calm is abruptly shattered. What initially appears to be a flock of bats is quickly identified as explosive drones targeting the president and the security team. Despite the Delta team's immediate response, they can't prevent the drones from detonating, leading to a catastrophic series of explosions that decimate most of the Secret Service agents. Amid the chaos, an unknown operator is seen controlling the drones, skillfully maneuvering them to avoid hitting Mike. This deliberate action suggests someone is trying to protect him. In a moment of sacrifice, Secret Agent Murph throws President Trumbull into the water just before he's killed in another explosion. Mike dives in after the president, guiding him underwater to avoid the continuing blasts. In the aftermath, both Mike and the president are rushed to the hospital, their lives hanging in the balance. While Mike regains consciousness quickly, the president is less fortunate, slipping into a coma. Vice President Kirby arrives at the hospital and is briefed that everyone else at the scene was killed except for Mike. With the president incapacitated, Kirby is swiftly sworn in as acting president. Meanwhile, the FBI uncovers a van near the explosion site containing advanced electronic equipment and a drone launcher. Lead investigator Helen Thompson takes charge of the investigation. As Mike's wife rushes to the hospital, worried for her husband, Mike himself is faced with a shocking development. While recovering in the ICU, he is interrogated by Agent Thompson, who reveals that he's been handcuffed to his hospital bed. Evidence seems to pile up against him. $10 million linked to him is found in an offshore account, and his DNA is discovered in the van with the drone launcher. Despite Mike's protests that he's been framed, Thompson formally charges him with attempting to assassinate the president. The media quickly picks up the story, branding Mike as the fallen angel behind the attack. His wife, now hounded by reporters, struggles with the emotional toll of the accusations against him. As Mike is transferred to a secure holding facility, things take a dark turn. The convoy suddenly loses power, an indication that they've been hacked. The escort vehicles are violently rammed off the road and flipped over in a brutal ambush. The FBI agents in the convoy are killed by a highly precise attack, and one of the assailants pulls Mike from the wreckage, freeing him from his chains and dragging him into another vehicle. As they drive, Mike tries to get answers but is met with silence. Acting on instinct, he breaks a car window, grabs a gun, and shoots the passenger. Then, using his handcuffs, he strangles the driver, causing the car to crash into a tree. Mike pulls back the hood of the driver, revealing him to be the same Secret Service agent he'd previously clashed with during training. As he walks away from the wreckage, Mike delivers a final blow. "I told you, you should have trained like it was real." Back at the FBI control room, agents watch the ambush footage and come to the mistaken conclusion that Mike orchestrated the entire attack. As they dig deeper, they find the $10 million in Mike's offshore account traced to a Moscow bank, which escalates suspicion that Mike might be working with Russian operatives. Meanwhile, at Salient Global, Wade Jennings is on the phone with a shadowy figure who assures him that the evidence against Mike is airtight. The voice warns, however, that if President Trumbull awakens from his coma, Mike could be exonerated, so they must hope the president remains unconscious. On the run, Mike stops at a gas station to make a call to his wife, Leah. She informs him that both she and their daughter have received death threats but are currently under FBI protection. Relieved but determined, Mike reassures her that he had no part in the assassination attempt, speaking deliberately for the FBI agents likely monitoring their conversation. He vows to find out who framed him. During the call, 3 men armed with a pistol and an assault rifle approach, hoping to claim the bounty on his head. Acting quickly, Mike disarms one of them, fires a warning shot, and scares off the others. After stealing their truck, he speeds away. While on the road, Mike notices a police cruiser tailing him, and a high-speed chase ensues. Mike expertly maneuvers the truck through tight turns, but the police remain in pursuit, with more patrol cars joining in. Part of the truck's load falls off during the chase, slowing down some of the police, but not all. As the chase intensifies, a helicopter is deployed to track Mike from above. Knowing he can't outrun them forever, Mike decides to take control of the situation, flooring the gas and crashing the truck into a barrier, causing it to flip violently. After escaping the wreck, Mike takes off on foot, disappearing into the thick forest. The police struggle to follow him through the dense terrain and eventually lose sight of him. Meanwhile, in Washington, the acting president holds discussions with Congress, debating the validity of the intelligence linking Mike to Russian collusion. The evidence remains shaky, but the president argues that they cannot afford to appear weak in front of the public or the world. At Salient Global, Wade continues plotting Mike's capture, guessing that Mike will seek refuge with someone he trusts. His instincts are spot on as they trace Mike's likely path to his father, Clay, who lives off the grid in the same forest. As Mike makes his way through the woods, he finally comes face to face with Clay, leading to a tense reunion. Mike confronts his father for abandoning him and his mother years ago. Clay, unrepentant, explains that the war took everything from him: his honor, his youth, and his life. He tells Mike with a solemn expression that leaving them was the best thing he could have done, as staying would have destroyed them even more. Despite the bitterness, the two men are now forced to work together as Mike remains a fugitive with powerful enemies closing in. The acting president makes a national announcement, declaring that U.S. intelligence unanimously concludes Mike Banning was behind the assassination attempt, with assistance from the Russian government. Meanwhile, Wade's team at Salient Global tracks Mike's location to his father Clay's secluded mountain home and sends in a squad to capture them. That night, Clay wakes Mike, telling him they've been found. Mike suggests they escape, but Clay refuses to leave his home, declaring it's where he belongs. As enemy troops approach, Clay reveals a hidden passage for Mike to use, but he decides to stay behind to fight. Clay, being a seasoned survivalist, has rigged the area with traps and explosives. As the soldiers close in, he detonates the first wave of bombs, wiping out several attackers. Mike attempts to fight the remaining soldiers in hand-to-hand combat, but quickly realizes Clay's strategy of using explosives is far more effective. Nearly caught in a blast himself, Mike adjusts to the tactic, following his father's instructions and pulling a wire that triggers a massive explosion. The final blast wipes out the rest of the enemy forces. After the battle, Mike and Clay gather the bodies of the fallen soldiers. As they comb through the equipment, Clay informs Mike of the president's broadcast, framing him for the attack. While searching the bodies, they find a phone and Clay uses it to contact Wade. On the call, Wade nonchalantly compliments Mike's battlefield skills, but Mike demands answers on how things escalated this far. Wade coolly responds that Mike was simply a necessary evil at the right place at the right time. Furious, Mike warns that he will hunt Wade down, then ends the call. Wade, still on the line, whispers with dark satisfaction, "That's my Mike." The scene shifts to the FBI arriving at Clay's mountainside cabin. They find the dead soldiers lined up on the porch, along with a note that reads, "We work for Salient." FBI agent Helen Thompson recalls her previous investigation into Salient Global's shady operations in Iraq and starts to suspect that Mike may have been framed, especially with Salient possibly standing to profit from triggering a conflict with Russia. Meanwhile, President Trumbull, who has been in a coma since the attack, begins showing signs of recovery, responding to medical stimuli. This raises the stakes, as his recovery could clear Mike's name. Back at the cabin, Mike tells Clay he's relieved that President Trumbull is waking up, but knows Wade won't stop until the president is dead. Mike expresses his growing concern for the safety of his wife and daughter, telling his father that he needs to leave to protect them. It is during this conversation that Clay learns about Mike's family for the first time. Showing a rare moment of vulnerability, Clay nods with a mix of pride and regret, acknowledging that despite his absence, Mike has built a life for himself. With the two of them now fully understanding what's at stake, they brace for the next phase of their fight. We then cut to a tense phone call between Wade and the mysterious figure he's been conspiring with throughout the film, who is revealed to be none other than Vice President Kirby. In a heated exchange, Kirby demands that Wade finish the job and kill President Trumbull. In return, Kirby promises Wade lucrative military contracts, ensuring Salient Global's dominance in future operations. Without hesitation, Wade dispatches a team to Mike's home, where they take Leah and attempt to force her to leave with them. Just as the situation escalates, Clay arrives, ambushing the attackers. He swiftly takes out one man with a pistol whip and stabs another before introducing himself to Leah. Startled and confused, Leah demands to know who he is. Clay reveals that he is Mike's father, providing small, intimate details about Mike to prove his identity. He also expresses deep regret for abandoning Mike and his family, a truth that visibly affects Leah. Meanwhile, at the White House, David Gentry briefs President Trumbull, who has finally regained consciousness. Gentry explains that Mike is being framed for colluding with the Russians and warns that Vice President Kirby is dangerously close to igniting a war with Russia. Alarmed and furious, Trumbull demands an immediate conversation with Kirby, recognizing the gravity of the situation. At Salient Global headquarters, Agent Helen Thompson and her team arrive, requesting clearance to land. Wade grants them access, but during their brief exchange, he realizes the FBI agents are suspicious and closing in on him. Acting swiftly, Wade pulls out his gun and fires, killing Thompson and her partner with precision shots. With the agents eliminated, Wade orders his men to get the cars ready, preparing to move out and personally ensure President Trumbull's assassination. At the same time, Mike arrives at the hospital where President Trumbull is recovering. He quickly overpowers a police officer, locking him in the trunk of his patrol car and taking his uniform to blend in. Using the officer's radio, Mike calls in a false report of a gunman outside the emergency room, drawing hospital security away from the president. As police scramble to respond, Mike continues his diversion by reporting more fake shots fired at a different location. However, Mike's identity is soon recognized by an old friend who he is forced to take hostage. Mike leads his captive up an elevator, emerging into a room where several officers are waiting with guns drawn. Unfazed, Mike demands to speak with David Gentry. When Gentry arrives, Mike surrenders peacefully but insists on speaking directly to President Trumbull. The president agrees to see Mike, knowing that he is not the traitor he's been accused of being. Mike warns the president that Wade won't stop until he's dead, emphasizing that the hospital is no longer safe. Trumbull, who trusts Mike implicitly, acknowledges that Mike is the reason he's still alive. With complete confidence in him, President Trumbull orders Mike's handcuffs removed and gives him control of the situation. Mike wastes no time calling for an immediate evacuation of the president. He orders Marine 1 to the scene, taking charge of the president's security in a final attempt to outmaneuver Wade and his deadly plot. As Mike organizes the evacuation of President Trumbull, he discovers that the hospital's systems have been hacked by Wade's men. Alarms blare, signaling the release of liquid nitrogen into patients' rooms, indicating that a massive explosion might soon follow. Mike is informed that the nitrogen valves have been sabotaged and are beyond repair, making the situation even more dire. Wade's men alert him that their plan is compromised and the evacuation of the president is already underway. Meanwhile, Vice President Kirby, oblivious to the full extent of the chaos unfolding at the hospital, stubbornly insists on moving forward with plans for war during a tense meeting. Outside the hospital, President Trumbull is being wheeled to a vehicle for evacuation. However, Wade's men, who are lying in wait, spot the president's convoy. Wade, from a distant vantage point, takes out the driver with a sniper shot, igniting a brutal firefight. Gunfire erupts as Wade's team engages the president's security detail. Both sides suffer casualties, the air thick with the sound of bullets. In the middle of the chaos, Mike orders his team to bring President Trumbull back into the west wing of the hospital to seek cover. As they make a break for it, a soldier throws himself in front of Trumbull, taking a fatal shot to protect the president. Amid the battle, Salient Global's hacker initiates the final phase of their plan, triggering a spark that sets off a devastating explosion in the east wing of the hospital. The blast reduces that section of the building to rubble, heightening the urgency of the situation. Wade, undeterred, instructs his men to lock down the area, intent on completing his mission to kill President Trumbull. Inside the hospital, Mike and David Gentry, who has been injured in the skirmish, quickly devise a plan. Using a map from inside the elevator, they figure out the best route to safely extract the president. The Secret Service team is dwindling, with Wade's forces steadily gaining ground, and Mike knows time is running out. He promises President Trumbull he will return, but the president, worried for Mike's safety, urges him to stay alive. The Salient's operatives begin to overwhelm the building, killing multiple Secret Service agents. Mike orders the remaining officers to protect the president at all costs. He then rushes off into the now silent hospital. It isn't long before Mike realizes Wade's men have infiltrated the building. Drawing from his training, just like in the drill from the beginning of the movie, Mike expertly uses stealth and combat skills to neutralize the attackers one by one. In a brutal hand-to-hand fight, he stabs one of the operatives and finds himself pinned against an elevator door. Thinking quickly, Mike pulls his Glock and fires several shots, each one hitting its mark and taking out more of Salient's men. With Wade's forces closing in, Mike fights his way through, determined to save the president and stop Wade's deadly plan. The tension escalates as the battle between Mike and Salient Global heads toward its inevitable and explosive conclusion. Despite being shot twice in the chest, Mike keeps fighting, throwing a frag grenade that takes out two more of Wade's men. The battle intensifies as Wade's team unleashes a barrage of bullets, wiping out the remaining protective detail. To finish the job, they fire an explosive that eliminates the last of the president's guards. Wade's men then surround the office they believe the president is hiding in. They kick down the door only to find that Mike has outsmarted them. The president is hidden elsewhere. Unknown to Wade, the president is in a room right next to them. As Wade prepares to leave, Mike makes his move, shooting one of the soldiers in the head just as a tactical team storms the building. Wade and 2 of his men flee, and Mike gives chase, leading to a fierce gunfight. The extraction helicopter arrives to provide cover for Wade, forcing Mike to take cover. Despite this, Mike manages to take out one of Wade's soldiers and uses the body as a shield against a grenade thrown by Wade. As Wade jogs toward the helicopter, thinking he's finally escaped, the chopper suddenly explodes, leaving him stranded and forcing a final confrontation with Mike. Badly injured but still alive, Mike and Wade face off in an intense standoff. Both draw their guns, exchanging gunfire in a last deadly battle. Mike manages to disarm Wade and the fight shifts to knives. In a swift, lethal move, Mike slices through Wade, forcing him into a reluctant surrender. As Wade lays dying, he reflects on their battle, likening it to 2 lions fighting to the death. In his final moments, Wade tells Mike he's glad it was him who ended it. Mike sits beside him, sharing a quiet moment of respect as Wade succumbs to his fate. The scene shifts to a peaceful aftermath. Relations between nations are restored, and in a lighter moment, a humorous mention of a surprising photo from the battle brings a brief chuckle. All charges against Mike Banning are officially dropped, clearing his name completely. Meanwhile, President Trumbull confronts Vice President Kirby in his office, revealing that FBI agent Thompson had uncovered Kirby's conspiracy before her death. With sharp sarcasm, Trumbull informs Kirby that although he might have kept him in the U.S. Congress, now he's being escorted out of the building by David Gentry, who is retiring that day. Mike visits President Trumbull for one final conversation. He expresses regret for hiding his medical condition, but Trumbull scolds him for keeping it a secret. Mike admits he didn't want to lose his position as the president's right-hand man. Recalling his father's advice about knowing when to quit before harming those you love, Mike offers his resignation. However, Trumbull insists that moments of struggle define us, and it's how we handle them that truly matters. He asks Mike to take the role of director of the Secret Service, reminding him that his refusal to give up saved the president's life. Mike accepts the offer, sharing a heartfelt handshake and hug with the president, promising no more secrets between them. In the closing scene, Mike reunites with his family at home. Clay, Mike's father, asks if he can stay with them, and both Mike and Leah happily agree. Leah pulls Clay aside and firmly tells him not to break Mike's heart again, to which Clay promises that he won't. In a lighthearted end credit scene, Mike and Clay are shown in a quirky relaxation chamber, recovering from their physical and emotional battles. They lie in pools of water when suddenly the lights go out, leaving them chuckling at yet another unexpected moment. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.